Hello, my name is Stacey Mankoff. I'm the managing principal of the Mankoff Company and founder of After the Bell Events and creator of the Bellringer. And I am delighted today to welcome Gary Nuttall to our talk on NFTs. It's going to be a discussion on the hype versus the reality. Gary is an emerging technology consultant where he provides education, consultancy, and advisory services to organizations looking at many technologies, including blockchain, distributed ledger, cryptocurrencies, and of course, NFTs. His career spans over 30 years in a variety of industries, including pharmaceuticals, commodities, trading, insurance, and most interesting, wine. He created his own consultancy, Distlytics, in 2016 to distill the jargon-rich hype around distributed ledgers and blockchain and provide some clarity of the subject, which means he tells it like it is. So Gary, welcome to the Bellringer.
Hey, thank you, Stacey, and thank you for inviting me.
Very welcome. Now, I'd like to get the conversation started by first defining what is an NFT.
So I'm going to offer several levels. We'll drill into it as we go along. In short, a non-fungible token or an NFT is simply a digital representation of the ownership of an asset. So nothing too complex there. But let's build on it a little bit further, because the longer answer is that it's a token managed by what's known as a smart contract, which is a little computer program running on a mutable blockchain ledger. And the token allows you to determine who owns an end digital asset, such as a JPEG, an MPEG, an MP3 or whatever, or any other form of digital file. Now, what all of this means is that we've got a trusted register of ownership of unique digital assets. So with it being managed on a blockchain, it means we have both an immutable entry, so it can't be changed, but also a complete transparent audit trail of all changes of ownership of the lifetime of the asset. And because the token's managed through a smart contract, which is a piece of software, it means we can also add features to it, like automatically paying the original registered creator a fee, such as a license fee or a royalty payment, each time the token's resold. So that's probably the answer without going into what fungibility is, non-fungibility is.
Well, obviously, you know, NFTs have been in the press quite a bit and in a variety of things, whether it's Dorsey's first tweet or it's a JPEG of a little girl in disaster zones, or, one little brother bit the other little brother's finger after a trip to the dentist. So I guess what is interesting right now is how do you apply it, and what is someone actually buying when they get an NFT, and what risks are they assuming?
That's a really good point. So the first thing is that the easiest way to buy or sell an NFT is on a marketplace such as Rarible or OpenSeas. You connect your crypto wallet to the platform and you can buy the NFT. Or if you've got a digital asset yourself, such as a JPEG, you can create it and then publish it onto one of those sites through a process known as mining, which is where it creates a smart contract and the associated token, or tokens if you want to create a limited edition. Now, the question about what is it you're actually buying with an NFT is something that causes me concern at times, because I think quite often people don't know what it is they're buying. Let's get this straight. When you buy an NFT, you're buying a digital certificate of ownership. That's pretty much like buying a photo of a till receipt for something you bought in a store. It's kind of nothing more. It doesn't always grant you exclusive use of the asset. So it doesn't stop other people from seeing that JPEG or watching a movie. And depending upon the jurisdiction, it may not even confer copyright or IP ownership. So the only thing ultimately you're actually buying is bragging rights. It's a bit like penning a photo of the receipt of the Van Gogh painting that you bought. It's not even penning up the Van Gogh painting. Now, the risks with this are twofold. First of all, most people don't realize what they have or they haven't bought with an NFT, because they are just buying the evidence of ownership, not the actual item. And second, that the infrastructure supporting an NFT at the moment is pretty complex and it's subject to problems. And if I quickly describe that through, Now, you typically have a crypto wallet. So people are becoming more familiar with crypto wallets now for holding their cryptocurrencies. This connects to a platform such as OpenSeas or Rarible, which is a website that allows you to buy and sell these things. These then link to a smart contract on a blockchain, and that smart contract manages the ownership of the token. And the token itself contains metadata, so that's data about data, which points to where the end digital asset actually resides. That's quite often like on a URL or a file location to a file on something like IPFS. IPFS is a form of digital storage. Unfortunately, IPFS is a great example of why you should never let technologists name things, because IPFS stands for interplanetary file storage. And as soon as you say that, to organizations, they go, sorry, can we be serious here? It's like,
I think somebody was watching Star Trek for, as a young person. Yeah.
I think you're exactly right there. So anyway, so
not that there's anything wrong with that as a Trekkie myself.
Yeah, and I always say that you want to learn about the future. It's quite often in the likes of Star Trek and that kind of thing. But what you've got there, what I just described through there, is a whole load of components in that overall chain. And if any of those components fail, so if the website goes offline or they go out of business, or the file gets corrupted or whatever, then that custody trail is broken. So you've kind of lost that whole end-to-end piece of the ownership. And that's why I'm actually working with several firms at the moment, looking at how we can make that much more resilient and solid, and commercialize it as well. And even use tokens as a means of granting and revoking access to things. So rather than having a token that just says you own a movie file,
right,
it would encrypt the movie file, so you need the token to actually access it. And that's quite different to what is available at the moment.
Okay. So I have a question. You have a situation where like Christie's or one of the big auction houses are actually doing this. So these are companies that you wouldn't normally think of as being in the crypto space, and yet they're getting into it. So is this more hype than reality? Because what you're saying, it sounds like, why would people pay that much money just for, a copy of something where they don't even own it? Or, is this just the early stages of NFT, and will it be developing differently?
Yeah, so there is a lot of hype, absolutely, and it's hype that's driving things. The first thing I always say to people who say, I just don't get this, is, I'm from a place in England called Liverpool, and Liverpool is known.
Oh, we've only heard about that from, some four guys that were very famous.
Exactly. The two things everyone knows Liverpool about are the four guys, the Beatles, and football. So the reason I don't live in Liverpool anymore is that I'm not into football, and so I'm not allowed to stay. Now, so the concept to me of spending a day traveling and then $50 or $100 to then go into a stadium to watch a bunch of guys kicking a ball around a field where I don't even get to kick the ball and I've just paid a load of money for it. To me, I don't get that. I can't comprehend. So this is where some people don't comprehend what's the purpose of NFTs and that. And I always say it doesn't matter if you don't understand it, as long as enough other people do. So it's kind of like Pokemon cards in a way as well. Pokemon cards carry no value, but they have a resale value. There's a market for them and everything. The really, really scary one is if you look at the value of the US dollar. And you say, why is a $5 note worth a $5 note or a $5 bill? It's only worth $5 because enough other people believe it is. So in some respect, NFTs and crypto in the wider space are kind of confronting this whole notion of what is value in that. But sticking with the NFT side of things and the hype, there's certainly an explosion of digital arts. As you mentioned, Beeple was a digital artwork at Christie's, raised $69 million at auction.
Now, yes, which is huge. I mean, that's a huge amount.
That's pretty ultimate bragging rights, isn't it?
Yes.
Certainly on that. But then you look at other things. So you got things like Crypto Kitties, which is digital artwork that can breed in effect, and that's going to grow. But then you start looking at more commercial type things, so like sports memorabilia. So NBA Top Shots, where you've got images that you can buy of, I think it's baseball moments or something. That's generated over $300 million of business so far. So the commercial side of things, the sports clubs, the fans, are all beginning to recognize that this is a new way of, I describe it as product life extension in a way. It's bringing new life to their business models and that. So if we extend that further, and we take a look at the moment, the first real growth area was digital art. That definitely was massive, real hype, several items going for over $1 million. What I've seen over the last few months, though, is that the value of digital art transactions are dropping rapidly. So we're moving away from the $69 million to the $1 million, to the 100,000, to the 10,000, to the 1,000. But the number of transactions is increasing. So what it means is that the popularity of NFTs is growing, but the value of them is decreasing, simply as it's a commoditizing type market. So I think we may be at the end of the hype cycle for digital art, but we're at the beginning of it for some other areas. So music, for example, we've got bands like Kings of Leon, who are now producing their albums and are NFTing them by linking in it to show that not only do you own the album, but it also gives you discounts to tickets for events and this kind of thing. So it's kind of a loyalty scheme in a way. So seeing it growing now in the music business, where the other great thing about an NFT, I mentioned before, it's programmable. So when the ownership of it changes, you can lock into it like a royalty fee type thing. So musicians are loving this idea, that it means that each time an NFT of a piece of their music is played or is sold, they get effectively a license fee from it. So that cuts out a whole layer of the music industry's production and management type thing. Then we're beginning to see it with video. Video is beginning to take off now. It's another form of media. Right. And I'm seeing video NFTs coming in. The other interesting one as well, slightly less comfortable space, is pornography. And there are now porn stars who are beginning to NFT their pieces of work. Pornography is always one of those sensitive ones because people get uncomfortable with it, but it's quite often a major driver of technology adoption. It was one of the first ones into mobile payment systems of working out how to change for things. It was one of the first which really pushed broadband speeds and capacity and that kind of thing. So I kind of say the sex industry is always interesting because people don't like to talk about it.
But everybody looks into it. I think, what is it? Pornhub is one of the most visited websites ever in history.
Yeah, one of the most visited websites that no one will ever admit to visiting. But the nature of it, taking it from a technology point of view, is it pushes the boundaries and it pulls things along. So when you get industries like that getting into it, that accelerates the pace of development type thing. So I'm seeing that. And also, I'm now beginning to see the opportunity that we're crossing the divide between digital and physical worlds. So I'm doing a piece of work with an art gallery where we are running an art auction of physical pieces of artwork, but we are providing the facility to have an NFT which shows the representation of the ownership of that piece of art along with the artwork. So whereas with digital art, everyone was selling, it was the digital art which was being auctioned as an NFT. This is, we are selling the physical art with an ability to record your ownership of it as an NFT, which is quite niche.
Yes. Well, I think, will it grow beyond the physical art world? Will it become, I mean, you have an interest in wine. And other commodities, will this transfer to the financial markets? What do you foresee in the future?
Yeah, well, the way I'm seeing it is that NFTs are actually going to end up delivering on some of the original promises of blockchain. So they actually provide the building blocks to implement proper things like product traceability, for example. So ultimately, an NFT is a mutable representation of ownership of any digital asset. So looking ahead, we could see things like digital shares in companies, fractional ownership in real estate, There are already pooled funds being created. There's a couple of NFT collateralized loan schemes kicking off. So what I'm seeing is that NFTs are certainly beginning to move into the financial services space already as a way of representing what goes on in what I currently describe as the real world, but whereas I actually mean the traditional finance world, that the crypto space, and particularly NFTs at the moment, are beginning to replicate what we see in the existing world. So I think we're just at the beginning of the journey. I think digital art was a fantastic way of getting people excited, getting loads of press coverage. It's on, Time Magazine, The Economist, all this kind of thing. I think the next stage is as the infrastructure becomes more mature, stable, robust, that's when you're going to see financial services transition onto it as well. And that's where we're going to see it grow massively.
Gary, thank you so much for this talk on NFTs and sort of giving us a little taste. And I thank you for your time. I hope to see you at one of our After the Bell events. And it's making me think about what I'm going to invest in. Thank you so much.
That's a pleasure. Great being with you. Thank you, Stacey.
Have a good day. Thank you all for coming. And I look forward to seeing you at our next Bellringer. Bye-bye.